History has a really fun way of repeating itself. Have you heard the proverb, there's nothing new under the sun? Well, that statement is just as true of Canadian politics as it is of everything else in life. And studying the events that have happened in the past can help us direct our strategies to win more effectively in the future. Pierre Trudeau resigned from being Prime Minister in 1984. That threw the Liberal Party into a race to decide who would be the next leader of the Liberal Party and who would be the Prime Minister of Canada. Now, this would end up being John Turner, but in June 1984, everyone was still waiting to find out the results of this leadership race. Leader of the official opposition in the House was Brian Mulroney, and he decides to distract the Canadian people from this leadership race by heading down to the United States to the Oval Office to have a meeting with Ronald Reagan. His advisors warn him against this, stating the danger of being associated with Reaganomics. At this time, anti-American sentiment is fairly prominent in Canadian culture. This unofficial meeting between the two political leaders sparks an incredible friendship that would continue for years to come.
What the continent needs is another Irish.
But that friendship is not Mulroney's only goal. At the time, a certain piece of steel legislation was working its way through the U.S. House of Representatives, and it would threaten about 5,000 Canadian jobs. According to his memoirs, part of Mulroney's plan was to ensure that the bill didn't pass. He took his concerns directly to then Secretary of Commerce Malcolm Baldrige, who agreed that their trade relations were vital. Baldrige would pledge that the steel legislation wouldn't become law, and those Canadian jobs are protected. His unofficial visit distracts from the Liberal Leadership Convention, and Brian Mulroney is seen as an incredible leader in the eyes of Canadians. In September of that year, he would go on to win the election and become Prime Minister. So in the April 2025 election, we saw American protectionism come to the forefront of Canadian politics. And a lot of the rhetoric that we heard during the election was who is going to protect us and fight against Trump the most. Now, what Canadians saw was Mark Carney trying to make deals and talking to Trump. They saw him with a relationship with Trump, at least to some extent, and they believed that he would be the best leader. Now, the Conservatives seemed to be a step behind on this, and they would talk about how they would change things, but there was really no action. The Canadian people were not seeing any action. At the time that Brian Mulroney went down for this unofficial visit, he was in no position to negotiate. He wasn't the Prime Minister of Canada yet. He really had no power to change things in Canada, but he went to the Oval Office anyway. This is not the first time that we would see Brian Mulroney do the controversial thing. And the majority of what we see from the Conservative Party today is them playing it safe and not being willing to fight the battles that actually need to be fought. I won't draw too many conclusions about what happened behind the scenes with Pierre Poilievre and his campaign managers, but I want you to think about what could have happened if Pierre Poilievre had crafted a good relationship with Donald Trump, especially even before the election was called. Would we have heard as much of the 51st state rhetoric? Would the tariffs have been such a big issue? Would Mark Carney have really looked like such a good option to ward against American protectionism? These are questions we may never have the answer to, but I want to close with a quote from Brian Mulroney. Politics isn't always about polls. Leadership is what matters. Give that to voters and they will vote for it every time. If you like this video, please hit the like button down below and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. And comment down below other stories that you would like to hear about. Bye.